Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFC Vegas 83, we have ourselves a fun 135 clash between Song Yadong and Chris Gutierrez in the main event, along with 11 other fights making a 12-card fight slate, and one with some interesting matchup to say the least. Most notably, we have 2 events left for the rest of the year, so I'm excited to have fights nonetheless before we get ourselves a little bit of time off, and I'm hoping we come out here and make some money. Last week was a decent one profit-wise, some very fun fights. I think it was one of the best cards I've seen in a very long time at UFC Austin, and we came out on top looking to do the same thing here. As always, we're going to break down everything from a DraftKings and a betting perspective. If you want to see my full slate of bets, check them out at GamblesGordo. It'll be posted before fight time, that's for sure, on my Twitter. And make sure to like button down below, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any more of these videos. Without further ado, let's do this. Get the fight night started with the 14-6 Rayan dos Santos making her UFC debut against the 4-0-1 Taira Alencar. Someone else making her UFC debut. Very vast difference in records here in terms of level of experience, and this is going to be a lower level bout in my eyes. Both of these girls didn't even win on DailyFanMMA Contender Series, but they're getting the call nonetheless. Alencar fought most recently to a draw last time out as a pretty big favorite, whereas Rando Santos lost to Denise Gom. So at least they're going out there and not losing brutally on DailyFanMMA Contender Series. Nonetheless, Rando Santos does have that more polished record, right? 20 bouts, she was 114 of them, and even having a atomweight belt there in Invicta. She does have an overall well-rounded skill set and someone who has the ability to contend wherever the fight goes. Very good technical striking, decent wrestling as well, and has a black belt on the mat. But it doesn't come without flaws. She's fought lower level of competition. She is a smaller fighter, typically fighting at atomweight actually, and we have seen her be submitted, knocked out in her losses. She's not perfect to say the least, but she seems resilient, seems to be well-rounded, and has been able to dispose this low level of competition accordingly. Taira Alencar is someone who was highly touted because she is so decorated in jiu-jitsu. A very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. She went in there, fought to a draw, which really showed her holes in her game last time, right? She lacked cardio. She lacked any striking whatsoever. She was content to pull guard, but she was facing a larger opponent, someone who was able to push a pace towards her, and someone who's able to stay safe from bottom position. I think when it comes down to it, the more trustworthy fighter of the two is Rayan Santos, because we know she has good cardio. We know she's going to be the better striker of the two. I get why she's favored in this spot here. But with such a low-level matchup, and when there's still so much to be seen from both these fighters, this is not what I want too much of a financial investment on. And instead, I think the person with more upside on DraftKings is going to be someone like Taira Alencar. Again, she didn't look good last time out. I don't think she'd get too much ownership here. And under-owned at 7.9K, her path to victory every time she walks in is to take down, smother, and potentially finish someone early on the mat. Very good from top position, very good control, and being the fighter who is usually at 115, as well as someone who has fought at 130, 125 grappling-wise, I do think she is a very dangerous problem on top, shall it get there. Now, as the fight goes on, Rando Santos may be the better striker, may be able to take over as the fight goes on, but early on, the more dominant grappler, the stronger of the two, I do believe to be Alencar. And if I'm not going to have too much money on a money line perspective, I'm willing to bank on the upside of Alencar. I do think she has early upside, and I do think she is someone who could go a bit under-owned as well. Give me Taira Alencar as an upset to get the night started. We continue with the 14-0 Tatsuro Taira versus the 9-2 Carlos Hernandez. This is one of a few bigger favorites on the card, and that's because it is Tatsuro Taira, a very highly touted prospect. Someone who is undefeated and has shown a very good, well-rounded skill set. He has been large favorite before, has delivered, has been in some pretentious situations before as well, but is very dominant. Incredible grappler, very smooth transitions on the mat, some decent striking as well, although he was outstruck by some lesser competitions earlier on. Very good patience and ability to win these minutes here. And I think with that wrestling improving, with that striking improving, he is going to be a threat in this division, just considering how dangerous and well-rounded he is. Carlos Hernandez is a decent fighter as well. 2-1 in the UFC, as someone who has shown decent resiliency, landed a couple takedowns and over 80 strikes in his 2 wins in the UFC so far, and has shown a good, well-rounded skill set, but he does have a tall task in front of him. And the biggest problem we have here on Hernandez, although he is a dog and this line might be wide, when it comes down to picking a winner, Taira has more paths. We've seen Hernandez taken down. We've seen Hernandez submitted in the very first round by Nascimento, and I think that is a path that Taira can replicate. Taira is extremely dangerous, very methodical in his actions as well, and I do think holds the advantage in a lot of these aspects here. With no issues really in the cardio or durability, Taira is someone who I think is going to be a problem here, and he is warranted of a larger favorite price tag. Now, do I want to pay that on someone in Taira who is facing someone in Hernandez who I think is a dog when it comes to fighting? Probably not, and it's hard for me to justify a parlay with Taira at this spot, but I do think he wins this a large majority of the time. DraftKings-wise, though, I do think he's a lot of upside, right? Taira has 4 wins at the UFC, averaging 102 across those 4 wins, scoring anywhere from up to 107 with a very high floor, with his lowest one being 97. And when you're such a large favorite in this card, and you do have a round 1 path to victory against someone who has been submitted early before, I like Taira. I like his submission upside. I like his wrestling upside. And I do think he wins this fight a lot of the time. He is a safer, but also a decent ceiling option at 9.4K. He will attract some ownerships. Maybe it's not the best GPP play, but I like him in single entry. I like him in cash. And I do think he's someone who gets the job done more times than not. We're going with Taira to stay undefeated here. Keep it moving with the 8-4 Stephanie Egger versus the 6-1 Luana Santos. Luana Santos coming off a round 1 victory over Juliana Killer Miller, someone who looked good in that showing and is getting a decent step up here in Stephanie Egger, one where she is the favorite. And there's a few things to take into account here. One, Egger hasn't looked the best, has been submitted before, but has fought the better level of competition, whereas Santos is this newfound UFC prospect. 1 fight, 1 round, 1 KO. Not very often seen in WMMA, but I think that's kind of why Santos is favored. She had a very good performance last time, and I get it. Decently well-rounded skill set, good judo, powerful, decent jiu-jitsu on the mat as well, but I don't like her level of competition. I haven't seen her really drag into deeper waters, and she's coming up in weight here against someone who is a pretty tough fighter in Egger. Now, Luana Santos was big for 125. I don't think the weight's going to be too big, but I think Egger just might be the more responsible fighter here, the one who you can trust more often, which is interesting to say about Stephanie Egger, and I think she might be my pick this week. Egger has been the one to go out there and face the better level of competition. She is a very, very good judo practitioner, and that's kind of how Santos gets a lot of her takedowns. Considering we've seen Steph go out there and face the better level of competition and do well, drag people in those deep waters, I think there's still more to be seen from Santos before making her a large favorite against someone in Egger here who can fight at a high clip. So give me the Swiss fighter here, another underdog pick, another interesting low-level WMMA. I just think we can trust her more to go out there and be the stronger fighter in the clinch, considering she's fought at this weight class more often, and be able to dictate the pace using her UFC vet savviness and just upsetting these odds against someone who is unproven. Does Santos have an opportunity to go out there, be the more dynamic, let's say engaging fighter who can win minutes? Potentially. But I haven't seen that from her yet. I haven't seen her be proven, and until I have, I can't lay chalk on her. DraftKings wise, again, I think Egger is a very, very good, viable GPP piece. 7.6K. When she's won fight, she scored 110, 109, 104, above 104 points in all 3 of those wins, and all 3 of them have come inside the distance. So a very proactive finisher in her own right there. I think she has a very, very good ceiling, even a pretty good floor here, because I don't really see Santos finishing her too often. When Egger is going out there being submitted, it's by Alexeva, who, interesting stuff there, but also Bueno Silva. She was able to go all 3 with Cortez. She's able to fight through adversity, and I do think that she brings that towards Santos here. I like the dog. Keep it moving with a reschedule bout. The 14-5 Steve Garcia, 20-6 Melt Costa. Broke this one down last week, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. I'm still on Costa, and the weight miss and the issues from Garcia only improves that. Costa, in my eyes, is still the guy who's more trustworthy, right? Very, very good counters, good ability to strike, mixed up on the ground as well. And although Garcia is someone who is extremely tough and is a dog, when you're going to the hospital for weight cuts and you're having these issues cutting weight, it only makes me more confident in the better counter striker of the two, who is going to be Melt Costa. Garcia's been knocked out before. I think Costa's able to do that here. Flip side of things, what's Garcia's win condition? It's walking forward Costa and trying to find the off switch, something that's not impossible, just I see to be a lesser of the 2 outcomes here. I instead think Costa, being the more technical fighter, the better grappler of the 2 in my opinion as well, is able to wear him down, find the off switch, and get a knockout win. Either way, a pretty violent affair, and one that could score well on DraftKings. Costa's 9K this week, $100 more than last week, but still a very, very viable option. I do think gets this fight done a lot of the time, and is a very, very sneaky GPP play. This fight as a whole might be as well, because Garcia, like I said, his path to victory isn't always minutes, it's being the harder worker, getting a finish here, and he has the potential to do so. A very, very live underdog at 7.2K. Either way, this fight should score very well. I am heavily leaning towards the Costa side, not only due to the weight miss, but due to his technicality and power. And I do think at 9K, very good DraftKings option, decent betting line option as well, and maybe an under could be a look for me to continue here. And then the tentative pre-line headliner here is Hyun-Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. I laugh a little because it's a Shannon Ross fight week. Surprising he's still here in the UFC, but an interesting fight nonetheless. We got to get a Shannon Ross versus Malcolm Gordon at some point to see a battle of the chins, and that's really what it comes down to. Is I think Shannon Ross is a fine offensive fighter. Good pace, good cardio, decent wrestling of the 2, but his chin's untrustworthy. 3 fights in the UFC, has been knocked out in all 3 of them, including knocked out in under a minute to Jesus Aguilar. Not good looks, and that chin is very, very concerning for Shannon Ross. Took him a long time to get up after that too. It's an issue. And although Hyun-Sung Park isn't the most violent striker of the 2, he does throw fighting intention, he is powerful, and he has multiple facets of getting this done. I think when it comes down to picking a winner in this one, you have to side towards the Hang Sung Park side, just because he is the guy who you can trust more, whether it be in the durability, whether it be in multifaceted part of MMA. And when you come down to seeing why this fight was originally created, it was a Asian fight card where you have this Korean fighter in Park here. How can we get this guy? How can we promote this guy? It's getting him a win here over someone in Ross who has been knocked out before. Now, do I want to pay this price tag for someone like Park? Not really. Just because we go out there and we see his style of fighting, it doesn't really play into Ross's weakness. It's like these big power punchers, these Klets and Rodriguez are going out there knocking out Shannon Ross. Is Park as powerful as that? Does he throw that fighting intention? Not as often. And he is instead more of a primary grappler. However, with that being said, you don't have to be the most powerful guy to knock out Shannon Ross. I think Park does throw the fighting intention. He does mix it up as well, and is a very decent grappler to contend on the mat. So how am I really breaking this down? Well, prediction-wise, Park should win by KO. It seems to be the common factor in Shannon Ross fights. But what if Park doesn't? Like, what if he doesn't connect? Well, I think Shannon Ross can outwork him to a decision. I think he can control him on the mat. And all this thing leads me to say, if you've got DraftKings decision-only lines, Shannon Ross could be a good number, or we could get some very decent props on this one. Hang Sung Park KO plus 150, Shannon Ross decision plus 700 right now at time of filming. There are decent ways of playing this. However, at the end of the day, I have to side with Hang Sung Park, more reliable fighter of the two, someone who I think they're looking to promote, and another week where Shannon Ross's chin viability is up in the air. DraftKings-wise, though, one you kind of got to target, right? Considering the track record for Ross and the sub 1 minute upside that Hang Sung Park has, 9.5K, very, very high ceiling, but flip side of things, Ross is going to come in extremely under-owned. I think that if he does outwork Park here, he could be a slate breaker, considering how he scored 0.4 and 0.8 in his 2 fights so far. People don't trust him. People don't want to go to him. He is a dart throw this week. He is a contrarian play. And although I never feel good with saying to play Shannon Ross, his upside is there, considering his low ownership and considering that Park isn't the biggest power puncher. Again, let me just bundle this all. Hang Sung Park should win. Is the more reliable of the two, has knockout power to put away Ross like Ross been put away before. However, I don't think that the line should be this wide. Ross has some minute winning equity. It is a very, very interesting matchup. And right now, according to Tapology, the main card opener is 21-7 Kenan Song versus the 9-2 Kevin Jousset. Tough one for me to break down. Lower level matchup for sure, and one where I'm going to go with the dog here in Song Kenan. Really simply put, is Kevin Jousset hasn't fought anyone to make me want to trust him. City kickboxing, decent style, but doesn't have the high level of experience. He was fighting tooth and nail against Kiefer Crosby in those matchups here, and I haven't seen a proven commodity from him all over the place to have success. He is hittable. We have seen him slow down as well, and although he has a good fundamental knowledge of striking, I think Song Kenan's a more proven guy who's been at the better level of competition, who just fights at a better work rate than I would favor in this matchup. Now, Song Kenan has been knocked out, Max Griffin, Ian Gary, that is the big concern here, but Kevin Jousset doesn't seem to be the biggest power puncher, and for that reason, I feel content with banking on Song Kenan to win a couple rounds and win a decision, or even be the more likely finisher of the two. Again, another card that was supposed to be in Asia, and I think this was one where another hometown guy could get it done. I'll take the shot here on Song Kenan. DraftKings-wise, though, in what is bound to be a primary striking matchup, I can't get to this fight too often. In the 2 decision wins that Song Kenan has had so far in the UFC, scored 73 and 59. Although he's a dog, he could be there in cash. Isn't the most trustworthy, but doesn't have the highest ceiling. And flip side of things, Jousset, although he does have a 110 box score, I don't see him finishing Song Kenan too often. I'm more so fading him as well at 8.5. Long story short, another underdog moneyline play could go towards not my favorite DraftKings play, but a fight nonetheless, and one where we're just going to move on from it here, picking the dog in Song Kenan. Keep it moving with the 23-6 Andre Muniz versus the 17-5 Jung Yong Park. Man, this is one of my favorite fights to break down just because I think it's so interesting, right? You have two polarizing fighters. You have the round one, extremely dynamic, extremely dangerous Andre Muniz, who is just a phenomenal grappler, versus the 17-5 cardio machine in Jung Yong Park, who really fights opposite style. You have Andre Muniz, who will go out there, try to kill you early and then fade down the stretch, versus Park, who takes a little bit to get going and then will kill you down the stretch, right? Completely polarizing styles. You have to think, is Muniz early or Park late? Whose side do you go on? And at first, you're probably thinking, yeah, another fighter, supposed to be an Asian card. Park should go out there, have success with the cardio, but I don't think it's that easy, and I don't think Park should be this big of a favorite against someone who is extremely dangerous in Andre Muniz. Muniz, although on a 2-fight losing streak to Brendan Allen, who could be fighting for a title soon, and the ever-dangerous Paul Craig. He's gone out there and had a ton of success on the mat, and I do think this is a matchup he's able to have some success as well. I do not agree with where the line is. Now, you know me, I love my cardio machines, and maybe at the end of the day, I'll pick Park, but I do think this is an extremely close matchup, and one where Muniz is going to have the success early. If you want to play Jung Park, my opinion, you do a live entry, because round 1 should go to Muniz at a very, very high clip, and considering how dangerous he is, he could have some submission upside. Now, Park has not been submitted since 2019 to Fluffy Hernandez, but look who he's fought. Barrio, Phillips, Nchikwi, Tululand, Holmes, like these are people, this is bottom of the barrel in terms of grappling. These are people who are not going to go out there and shoot takedowns. This is going to be the most dynamic takedown threat he's seen yet, most dynamic grappling threat he's seen yet. And this is one where I do think Muniz could have some early success here. So, give me Muniz. I'll take the dog shot here, actually, what I've decided. On a fight where I think I'm so close, might as well pick the underdog here. It pays better and a decent DraftKings play for sure. Now, if Muniz isn't able to get a finish early on, it seems to be tiring, Park's going to take over down the stretch with his cardio, and he is someone who you could look to live bet. Very, very good round 3 option as well if you're looking to bet those high props, mushroom. But off the rip, from the start, in a 5-minute matchup at cardio parity, I would pick Roger Muniz as the better fighter. DraftKings-wise, both these guys are extremely viable, and this is my favorite matchup DraftKings-wise so far. Park at 8.8 has scored very well in his wins. 109 against Derive, 112 against Julian, 101 against Holmes, 127 against Phillips. Like, he has had a very good ability to break people down the stretch and score well in doing so, whereas this round 1 machine of Muniz has been the same. In his wins, has scored 91, 108, 107. Amazing scores for someone who is at a 7.4K price tag, and people who have a very, very high ceiling. Considering I'm picking the dog here in Muniz, I'll be looking to roster him. I think he has upside. A very intriguing matchup, but I will reiterate, round 1 early success for Muniz. Jung Park would take over late if it's still going. Fun matchup. Let's side with the dog. And then we continue with the 15-5 Nasrat Haqparast versus the 17-6 Jamie Mullarkey. Ooh, interesting one. I am going to pick Nasrat Haqparast. Let's put that out of the way. I like his camp. I like his ability to mix it up here, and I think he is going to be the more trustworthy fighter of the two. This should be a 15-minute striking affair. When it comes to that, who is going to be the better boxer? Who's going to have more output? Who's going to win more minutes? And who is the more trustworthy fighter? All those boxes go towards someone like Nasrat Haqparast. He throws incredible volume, has incredible pace, makes very good reads as the fight goes on, and Mullarkey, although a good striker in his own right, with good power, can be hit, has been dropped, and hasn't looked the best of recent. And I think that's kind of why the line is reflecting this Nasrat Haqparast love, and I have to kind of agree with it. Now let's put it this way. I scored Mullarkey's fight against McDessie for McDessie, and I scored his fight against Johnson for Johnson. So there is a very realistic component to this where the only wins for Jamie Mullarkey in the UFC have come against Smith, Worthy, and Prado. 3 fighters who don't compare to the skill of Haqparast and people who are going to be lower level. And I think when it comes down to that here, Haqparast has fought some good level of competition, is going to be the more proven minute winner of the two, and is a side I'm going to pick here. However, on DraftKings, it's an interesting one, right? They're closer to the middle here, 8.7 for Haqparast. He is someone who hasn't historically been the best fighter to score on DraftKings. Never scored 100 points. Has put up a couple 99ers, but never scored over 100 points. Facing a decent power threat, Mullarkey. I'm not getting to Haqparast as much as I want to. I'd much prefer a Park, a Rountree, or even some of these higher, more expensive guys, but he's a viable cash play considering I do think this fight goes to decision a lot of the time. Flip side of things, Mullarkey, how often am I getting to him? Not too often. I mean, he does have some 127-point performances, but I've seen nothing but durability from Haqparast, and I can't really trust Mullarkey to go out there and win a volume-based decision, because when he has, he scored 68 and 81. Some of that won't score the best at 7.5. I prefer Muniz for upside. I prefer Song Kenan. I prefer Stephanie Egger. Pick is Haqparast, although not the most intriguing fight on DraftKings. And then another short notice one, a real short notice one, the 16-5 Sumudaerji versus the 19-13-1 Tim Elliott. Hope this is confirmed because I did a little bit of research on this one, and it's still kind of new. It's been I think 14 hours since it was announced. Sumudaerji was supposed to fight Alan Nascimento, which would have been fun because we haven't seen Sumudaerji since his war against Matt Snell, and that showed a few things, right? That's kind of what's looming in people's mind, is he's got incredible power. Has the ability to knock out anybody, really put Snell on the fence, but can be taken down. Although it was an absolute war-paced fight that was fought really fast, did seem to gas out, was submitted, and that's kind of important against Tim Elliott, who will push an insane pace, will look to grapple you, take you down, and hold you there. And I think in this matchup here, when I do see Tim Elliott be the favorite in here, is that's what people are implying, and it's what I'm implying as well. Out of the two, the more dominant wrestler, minute winner, control guy here is going to be Tim Elliott, and I do think he can fight at a very, very high pace to give problems to Sumudaerji here, like people have done before. I think Tim Elliott is the rightful favorite. When Tim Elliott loses, it's because people are submitting him late. It's because he's putting his neck in precarious situations. Sumudaerji doesn't really have that same grappling threat, and he is more so a primary striker who in his 2 losses in the UFC has been finished by submission both times. So on the feet, the guy with more height and reach, the guy who's been preparing for a fight, the more powerful of the two is Sumudaerji, but considering how durable Elliott's been and considering how Elliott has that ground advantage, he is my pick to win this matchup. At the time of filming this, Tim Elliott is minus 180, and I have to agree with that line there. I do think he wins this fight more often than not, and honestly, I might have to play that considering how I do think he has a grappling advantage. The short notice nature isn't the most enthusiastic response from someone back in Tim Elliott here, but I do think he has this clear path to victory on the mat where he should have some success. If you tell me Sumudaerji goes out there and knocks out Tim Elliott, I'm not surprised. That's his path to victory, but considering win percentages, considering the guy I see getting his hand raised more often than not, it is Tim Elliott. He has to be my side here. DraftKings-wise, though, I want this fight, right? I just mentioned Sumudaerji, his path to victory is using that range, using that power to outstrike someone like Tim Elliott. And at 7.1K, that is going to score very, very well. I do not know where Elliott's going to slot in on this price tag thing, but if he's minus 180, that's a $8,700, $8,800 range for a guy in Tim Elliott who does score very well, who does average a ton of takedowns, who does a lot of control time. I want this fight. I think Tim Elliott wins more often than not, and I do like his upside considering his wrestling path to victory. Co-main event time, it is the 37-18 Anthony Smith versus the 12-5 Khalil Rountree Jr. Super fun co-main event, coming together on short notice, which is a bit concerning, but one that's got its layers to it, right? Anthony Smith opened up as a massive favorite and is now completely switched. Khalil Rountree Jr. is now a massive favorite. They've really switched that way, and you get Anthony Smith all the way up to plus 200 and climbing. And if you look back at it, if you just think about these two guys right now, right? Span was able to wobble Smith. Smith hasn't been the best in terms of absorbing damage, and Khalil Rountree Jr. is an incredible, powerful guy. Yeah, you can see that because Khalil Rountree does have some incredible knockouts. He does have a ton of power, can be a very damaging fighter. But I think my love for Anthony Smith is going to come through here as I back the guy way too often. Bet him against Span and got through there. I bet him against Crude as a very, very big play back in 2021, which was, again, maybe a bit lucky with the way that leg kick went, but a lot of things to say is I love Anthony Smith, not only due to his skill set, but due to I think he's a smart fighter. He fights with a good ability to mix it up, is very well-rounded, is very proven, and has fought this high level of competition that I've seen help him succeed here. And in this matchup here, I think Khalil Rountree is a lot more in front of him than people are thinking, right? Anthony Smith is getting up there in age, I get it. He didn't look the best against Walker or Ankalaev, but Khalil Rountree is not only a very unpredictable fighter in terms of who's going to show up, but he's very one-dimensional in that power. And we've seen Khalil Rountree Jr. be out-volume and lose decisions to Marcin Praggnea. We've seen him taken down and controlled and lose matches on the mat ground. Khalil Rountree Jr. isn't always the guy going out there and decimating Carl Roberson. He's a guy who is very inconsistent, has a ton of power to knock out anybody, but if you can't get that knockout, can lose decisions, can be taken down. And in this matchup here, I think there are more layers to just a powerful striker who should take out an agent vet in Anthony Smith. And for that reason, I'll probably end up taking a dog shot on Smith at plus 200, or if it continues to climb. I think if it comes down to the minute winning, Smith has more levels to his game and should be able to pick apart Rountree. But what I like the most here is the wrestling. You look at the opponents for Khalil Rountree Jr., and since 2019, he's fought Praggnea, Bukakis, Roberson, Jacoby, and Dawkins. Not a single grappler there, really. Not a single primary grappler. When he was facing a grappler, Ian Kuchalaba, taken down easily, controlled, and pounded out. And I think everyone underrates the ground game that Anthony Smith has. He was able to take down Span. Even Walker when he was wobbled in their matchup there. And in other fights, when he's able to use that BJJ, he's had a ton of success. Devin Clark, just to say the least, there is when he is the superior wrestler, he can have success. Now, his defensive wrestling isn't great, but Khalil Rountree wants to stand and bang. I think Anthony Smith has more layers to his game that could help him succeed. Now, if you tell me Rountree goes out there, leg kicks, and knocks out Anthony Smith, I'm not surprised. It's definitely a possibility. But does that happen more than minus 250 in tails? No. I think that the live underdog here is Anthony Smith, and I'll be backing him as my pick to win the fight, as scary as that sounds. DraftKings-wise, he's very live. I just think he has more paths, and I keep wanting to explain myself at the end of the day. I don't have to. Line is wide. Give me the more proven guy here in Smith, the more trustworthy guy. DraftKings-wise, though, I said it, 7.3K. I mean, Anthony Smith, when he wins, has scored pretty well. 120 against Span in that first round victory, 100 against Crude in that first round victory, 98 against Clark. He has that upside. In his decisions, hasn't scored as well, scored 73 against Span. But I think with that grappling path to victory, him having to use the ground game has a very high upside, a lot of ceiling there, and it should help him score very, very well as an underdog. Flip side of things, Rountree Jr., his path to victory also scores very well. Scored 107 against Dawkins, which is a very good score there. In these fights he's finishing, he's putting up north of 95 points. If this does go to decision, I don't think he wins. So I don't think I have to worry too much. I'm instead banking on his upside at 8.9K. Give me this fight as a whole, however, I am picking Anthony Smith. And last but not least, our main event, the 27-1 Song Yadong versus the 24-2 Chris Gutierrez. And let me lay a few things out here. I'm picking Song Yadong. I don't know why this fight is happening. And if Chris Gutierrez burns me here, man, then I got some rethinking to do. I'm not the biggest Chris Gutierrez fan. I bet against him a few times. I bet on Alencar against Chris Gutierrez. Who's to say I'm not picking Song Yadong? You know what? I've had my success fading Gutierrez. I bet on Muniz despite the win streak. And I just think that there are flaws in his game that people can exploit. And especially when you're taking such a big step up here against someone like Song Yadong, it should be another one where the line's probably about right for the big favorite in Song Yadong. I think Yadong's going to be the better striker of the two, better grappler, better ability to mix it up using multi-levels, and will be the guy pushing forwards. When Chris Gutierrez on that back foot, although he's got a ton of good footwork, doesn't win as many minutes as you'd expect him to, has no really other facets to his game other than those kicks and the odd 1-2 there. He's more a movement-oriented type of guy. And when you have a guy like Song Yadong who is as smart, as durable, as powerful walking you down, he should have the ability to go out there, land at will pretty much, and dictate where this fight takes place. Chris Gutierrez wants to go out there, leg kick you, get out of range, get on his bike, circle around. Yadong won't let that happen. He has multiple levels and abilities to get this done, and I do think he wins this fight at a very, very high clip. He'll put Chris Gutierrez on the back foot, try to close that range, eliminate the kicking potential, and use his incredible boxing. If he has to, he has takedown upside. We've seen Gutierrez be taken down before. I mean, that's really how Durden fought to a draw with him, with that takedown upside. I think there are just a ton of levels for Song Yadong to win this fight, and I think he should get it done a lot of the time. Considering he has 5 rounds to work, 9.2K, Song Yadong is a guy who I'm looking towards. Scored 103 against Simon, 105 against Marias, 9-2 against Arce. He has a ton of upside as a fighter who I think wins a lot of the time, and he is who this card is built around. Gutierrez is taking a massive step up from Alencar to Song Yadong here, and I think he pays the price for it. Give me Song Yadong, and I think he continues his quest for the top here. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Let me quickly run you through my quick picks, taking Song Yadong, Anthony Smith as an underdog, Tim Elliott, Nasrat Haqparast, Andre Muniz as an underdog, Song Kenan as an underdog, Hung Sung Park, Costa, Stephanie Egger as an underdog. Again, Daniel Marcos, Tetsuro Taira, and in a true 50-50 level WMMA side, taking the underdog, another one in Toledo Alencar. DraftKings wise, a ton of high scoring matchups. I want Rountree Smith, I want Park Muniz, I want Park Ross. But I think we break it down by category up top. I like Taira, Song the most. Mid-range, Costa, Park, even Alencar has some true GPP upside. Whereas underdogs, Song Kenan, Stephanie Egger, Andre Muniz, Anthony Smith. There are a ton of really high scoring matchups that I think maybe I should take some more time talking about. So if I don't break it down enough for you guys in the next 30 seconds here, ask your questions down below. I think when it comes to the chalkier plays, the safer plays of the two, Costa's there, Song Yadong, Tetsuro Taira, Egger, Kenan, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to having the most upside, Yong Sung Park has 60-second win bonus. Costa I think goes overlooked and has a ton of finish upside. I love him at 9K. Alencar, low-level fight, first fight of the night, has round 1 submission upside. And then as a complete dart throw, a complete Hail Mary, I even forgot to mention Tim Elliott, a very good option as well. And last but not least, Shannon Ross will have almost no ownership, is a very, very dangerous GPP play, but fights at a high pace, I think wins more than the line entails, and his path to victory should score very well. A lot of these options here, hopefully I broke it down enough throughout the video, but if you have more questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Reignmaker-wise, highest ceilings, Yong Sung Park, Tetsuro Taira, Song Yadong, Costa, Tim Elliott maybe even, and then the winner of Park Muniz. Betting-wise, no bets locked up yet. I'll be betting Anthony Smith as an underdog. I'll be betting Song Kenan as an underdog. I'll be betting Tim Elliott if he stays minus 180. And then I'll be looking for a way to play maybe Costa some way, maybe even Shannon Ross decision only if I get a good line, and then probably the under in the Muniz Park line if, again, I get a solid enough line for it. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love. We have 1 week left for the whole year, and actually the video for next week will be delayed. I got exams to take. I won't be doing my video till later. I actually won't even be doing any content for DailyFanMMA either because it'll be so busy. I'll try to get some videos out, but my DMs are always open on Twitter. Feel free to @me and anything as well. I'll be happy to chat fights anytime. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video and picked up on enough knowledge that I've been throwing down. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. I wish everyone all the best of luck in your DraftKings and betting endeavors. Let's make some money.